Hey, welcome back to another video. On March 4th, 2014, South Park: The Stick of Truth released for the PS3, Xbox 360, and PC as the franchise's return to video games after having mostly steered clear of the medium since the early 2000s, save for a couple of Xbox 360 arcade titles. A basic for beginners type of RPG in the vein of Paper Mario or what have you, at the time, I really loved this game. I was still largely getting into RPGs back then, and I was a huge fan of the show, still regularly watching new episodes and rewatching old favorites. But it's been 10 years since then. I've pretty much dropped off the show and haven't actually played Stick of Truth since it was new. Literally the only time I've taken it off of my shelf is to pack it in boxes when I move for the 8 millionth time. So, to celebrate the game's 10th anniversary, and because South Park Snow Day is on the horizon, or probably even fully released by the time this gets out, I thought it might be fun to revisit the game and see if I still enjoy it with my interest in the show itself having diminished, and many more RPGs under my belt. Plus, my old review from back in the day is both terrible and no longer public, so this will be a good chance to give the game a better look than I did when I was 15. Is it exactly as good as I remember, or should it go into the pile with all of the other whatever licensed video games? Let's dig into South Park: The Stick of Truth and find out. The game begins with you, the new kid, moving into the town of South Park, innocent and unaware of the insanity that befalls this quiet little mountain town on a daily basis. As soon as you head outside, you meet Butters and are quickly dragged into the kid's Dungeons & Dragons LARP session thing, given the name Douchebag by Cartman no matter what you pick for your name, and set out on a quest to retrieve the eponymous Stick of Truth after it gets stolen. What begins as a simple game of wizards and warriors between a bunch of 8-year-olds eventually progresses to include the government, aliens, Nazi zombies. Basically, it all gets wildly out of hand in typical South Park fashion. And the game really does shine here. It's a perfect representation of what the show is like. Whether that's a good or bad thing is obviously going to vary depending on if you like the show, but when the game came out, I was all over it. And even now, I still really got a kick out of its writing. There's a lot of the show's classic humor here, poking fun at a lot of things, but especially video game tropes, like finding a bunch of audio logs on an alien spaceship that are pretty much just making fun of audio logs, or explaining the turn-based nature of the game by saying that's just how they did it in olden times.
I'm gonna kick your ass. Clyde, you have to wait your turn. That's lame. No, Clyde, it's like olden times. You have to wait your turn, like in the Middle Ages, Clyde.
They even turn the idea of barging into people's homes in RPGs on its head by having some people actually get mad at you, or having you see some things I definitely cannot show in this video, like a guy who is, shall we say, getting very close to a horse. The writing really is a highlight and feels exactly like an episode of the show. That said, some of it does not land for me, mainly a lot of the gross out humor. There's a lot of fart jokes, there's a lot of shit jokes, and they're definitely the low point of the humor. Then you get stuff like the section in the abortion clinic that really feels like it's just trying to be shocking and comes off as way too try-hard edgy for my tastes. I distinctly remember not minding this back when the game came out, so I guess chalk that up to my changing tastes as I've gotten older. Thankfully though, by and large, the writing is very funny and actually kinda got me nostalgic for this era of South Park, so it was definitely doing something right. But if you're not already a fan, odds are high the writing of Stick of Truth is not going to win you over. The gameplay just might though, because it's pretty damn good. Now it's not revolutionary or anything. If you've played an RPG before, you pretty much know what you're getting into, but that doesn't preclude it from being very good at what it does. Battles are, like I said at the top of the video, very much in the same vein as the Paper Mario series, where instead of just picking a command and watching it play out, you're given the chance to input a command when an attack lands for some extra effects, whether that be dealing extra hits, striking with a more powerful attack, or utilizing magic, which is straight up just farts. If you prefer your battles with more dynamic interaction, then you'll enjoy what this game puts forth. And as is standard, this game has status effects that can be applied to either you or your enemies. Doing something gross, like say, throwing a turd at an enemy will cause them to get grossed out, making them take damage every turn. Some weapons and abilities will cause bleeding, which makes them take damage every turn. Enemies can get set on fire, which, as you can probably guess by now, makes them take damage every turn. And there's a chill effect which slows down an enemy so they take fewer turns, but the damage over time effects are really the ones that matter. Making proper use of these will get battles over in no time. That does lead into the one thing that might be a deal breaker. Stick of Truth is a really easy game. Yeah, it's a beginner's RPG, so you really wouldn't expect it to be punishing or anything, but even by those standards, this game's a cakewalk. Especially around the midpoint when you start getting some of these stronger weapons, you can shred through regular encounters and bosses alike with zero issues. Even when they really pile on armor that's supposed to reduce damage, a decent blast of fire melts right through it, and tossing some gross out or bleeding damage can wrap up a fight in seconds. Enemies are certainly capable of wrecking you, especially if you have trouble with timing your blocks like I do, but it's also very easy to fix that. See, you can use an item and attack in the same turn, so if an enemy manages to knock out a chunk of health, just pop a health potion and heal up most or all of that damage, and then destroy the enemy. Even if they straight up kill a party member, same deal. Toss a revive potion at them, and when their turn comes up, they can use a healing potion. Plus, you can also get a perk that increases your attack whenever you use a healing potion, making it even easier to shred through whatever comes your way. Despite the ease of the game though, it is still a lot of fun. Personally, I'd much rather a game be piss easy than fuck ridiculous hard anyway, and it really doesn't ever get old to burn through 80% of an enemy's HP in one turn. About the only thing I think the difficulty does hamper a bit are the summons. Yeah, this game has summons, 4 of them that you get through side quests, and they are not useful in any way. The main issue with them comes in their restrictions. For one, each summon can only be used once per in-game day, and since days only change as part of the story, that means you're limited to only a certain number of summon uses throughout the whole game. Now, that alone isn't too bad, but it's the other restriction that really kills the summons. You cannot use them in boss fights, which really are the only times you'd ever want to use them. So as a result, I literally never used them. For real, I got all 4 of them and didn't use a single one because it's not worth doing so in normal encounters, and you can't use them in bosses. That's really the only fault of the lack of challenge if you ask me, just completely invalidating one of the game's mechanics. But like I said, it's still really fun to play, and even if I didn't use the summons, doing the side quests to unlock them was fun, as are most of the game's side quests. They let you interact with characters who otherwise don't fit into the main plot like Al Gore or Mr. Hanky, and give you a chance to explore the overworld, a very well put together recreation of the town of South Park itself. Part of the fun of licensed games like this to me is being able to walk around in a world you're so used to seeing on TV, and Stick of Truth definitely nails that. I don't think South Park had ever been fully mapped out in the show before, but in this game you really get to see how it all fits together, to know where 2 locations are in relation to one another, and I just love that. Knowing that Tweak Bros Coffee isn't far from Tolkien's house probably doesn't matter to most people, but it's details that I like at least. And South Park's not exactly a small town, so when you need to go from, say, Kenny's house over to City Walk, which is literally all the way across town, you've got fast travel to help you, provided by Sir Timmy. There are 12 fast travel flags in the game, and walking by one will activate it and let you go there from any other flag. Yeah, you have to actually be at a flag to fast travel to another one, but they're placed in a way that you're never too far from one, so it's not that big a deal. Before we wrap up, I do feel like I should mention that the game does suffer from a few technical issues. For one, it drops frames occasionally, usually not many and pretty much exclusively in battle, but it does happen. I don't have footage of it because, like a goof, I was not recording at the time, but in the caves underground, I got a particular battle where the frame rate really started to chug, but that was the absolute worst it got, and it only happened the one time. The other major issue also affects the battles, and it's that sometimes the game just doesn't respond to my inputs for action commands. And no, that's not me making an excuse for being terrible. 9 times out of 10 if I screwed up an action command, it was absolutely my fault. But every once in a while, I'm certain I get the timing right, but the game doesn't read the input. Again, not common, but it is an issue. These problems both existed back on the Xbox 360 version, and it holds true for the Switch version here as well. No idea if the PS4 or Xbox One versions fixed that at all. There was also an instance when the game just straight up crashed, so maybe it's not the most stable thing in the world. Well, I think that's really all I've got to say about Stick of Truth. 10 years later, and with 100% less interest in South Park, is it still worth playing? Yeah, I'd say so. That does come with a couple of caveats though. If you're looking for a challenging RPG, you will not find that here, and if you really hate South Park's writing, it's going to be hard to deal with that for the whole 10 or so hours of the game. But if you like South Park, or you're trying to get into RPGs, or you want a more casual RPG experience, or any combination of the 3, then Stick of Truth is definitely worth checking out. It's no Final Fantasy VI, or Earthbound, or Xenoblade 3, but it is a quality RPG, even more so if you are a South Park fan. Maybe now I'll finally get around to finishing the Fractured But Whole. Snow Day actually did come out during the production of this video, and it's not like I'm going to be playing that anytime soon, going by the reception it's gotten. So yeah, that is going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, consider giving it a like, it really helps out the channel, and if you want to stick around for any future videos that I make. Obviously, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell because YouTube is dumb. You can also follow me on Twitter, which is linked in the description, where I post usually when I'm playing stuff or reading stuff or whatever, so you can kind of know what videos might be coming in the future or just hear me say stupid things. I've also got a Patreon linked in the description where you can toss a couple of bucks my way if you want and get some perks, but if you're not in a position to do so or you just plain don't want to, that is perfectly okay, and just sharing the videos around is more than I can really ask for. That is all for now, and I will see you guys next time.